Yes, people, welcome back to the Ratcave. It's Ratzi here for DJKit, and today I am looking at the brand new, the beautiful beast, the Pioneer DJ DDJ-REV7 controller. So in this video today, I'm going to be looking at all of the new standout features on this DDJ-REV7, the things that I like about it, and some of you will be surprised there are some bits that I actually don't like about it. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. So the Pioneer DJ DDJ-REV7 has been specifically designed to be used with Serato DJ Pro. And straight off the bat, this is the first thing which I'm really angry about when it comes to this controller, because for regular watchers of this DJKit YouTube channel, you'll know that I am actually a Rekordbox user. And when the S11 came out, it was dual compatibility. It worked with Serato and Rekordbox, the same as the S7. The S9, when that originally came out, was of course Serato only, and then Rekordbox came later on, which I'm hoping is what is going to happen with this DDJ-REV7, because it is so good that it's just mean to not have this working with Rekordbox, particularly, you know, with it being Pioneer's own specific software. I just don't understand why this doesn't work with both Serato and Rekordbox. And just to say, the first thing I did when I got this, I plugged it in and I didn't even open Serato. I actually went straight to Rekordbox just to double check to see whether or not I could make it work. And it does show up in the Rekordbox audio settings, but I tried a million different kind of little ways to try and make it work, but nothing yet. So crossed fingers for Rekordbox compatibility in the future. Anyway, the DDJ-REV7 is Pioneer's first ever controller with a moving platter. As you can see, it's quite blatantly built around the design of Pioneer's flagship PLX 1000 turntable. Although the platters are 7-inch rather than the obvious 12-inch that you get on a normal turntable. So yeah, the 7-inch platters do spin, and on the top here, you've got this bit of what looks like vinyl, but it's actually not vinyl. It's UV printed acrylic top panel is what Pioneer are calling it. So it's basically a thin bit of plastic, which I'm not gonna lie to you, I did have my doubts when I first saw this, but I've got to tell you, it is perfect. It's got just about the right amount of grip for scratching, especially with like sweaty hands or whatever. And even though there is something about it that doesn't quite feel like it is a legit bit of vinyl, it's almost like Pioneer DJ have sort of started their own take on what vinyl should feel like. And I know that that sounds like a really strange thing to say, but I think that you'll know what I'm saying once you do have a go on this DDJ-REV7. So yeah, big fan of these platters, and you actually do get 4 slip sheets when you buy the controller, which you can put inside the platter itself. As you can see, I have got 2 on each side here, which is the way that I'm using it, which feels fine for me. But you can obviously take as many away or add, you know, depending on maybe if you scratch particularly on this side, you could take the 2 from there and put them in there, or have whichever combo feels best for you. Now, as you can see, the top of the vinyl actually comes off here. So I would probably say take that off regularly, maybe give it a little clean because you might get some dust in it. And then to put it back on again, there is a little latch. That's the quickest I've got that on since I first got this controller. And there you have it. So now this bit of acrylic here is back stuck on top of the platter, and no chance of it sort of flying off or becoming loose at all or anything like that. So yeah, this REV7 does emulate Pioneer's PLX 1000 turntable, particularly with the colors, and even to the point of having these dots around the outside of the platter. What's the point in them dots when there's no target light, I hear you vinyl enthusiasts call? Well, this DDJ-REV7 is all about emulating the feel and triggering the muscle memory of using a pair of turntables and a battle mixer. So even though there is no target light to shine on these dots and tell you about the pitch, which is what those dots are actually for those who mix by touching the side of the platter to slow it down or nudge it to speed it up or whatever, those dots will feel familiar. And actually, speaking of nudging the platter on the side and slowing it down on the side, this is actually the only real hands-on way to manipulate your tune playing, as there is no spindle in the middle because of this lovely LCD screen. There is, however, these pitch bend buttons down the bottom here, which slow down and speed up the tune. Or of course you can go with the classic moving the pitch fader up here to get your tune in time as well. Just to say as well, shift and these pitch bends does actually zoom in and out of the waveform on the In-jog displays. And then down the bottom here, you have 33 or 45 speeds, depending on your preference. Now, again, real vinyl heads could argue that you should be using this on 45, as the size of the platter is the size of a 45 record, but I have been using it on 33 just because that's the speed that I'm used to when I'm playing on turntables. Now then, double tapping the 33 down here actually brings up the clock arm here, which is in case you don't want to use one of these stickers which are provided when you buy the controller to stick on the vinyl. But if you do use these stickers, you can take advantage of the 12 o'clock or the 2 o'clock markers around the jog wheel. The 2 o'clock being a nod to where the needle would be on a turntable, which is a good marker for people to sort of use as a cue point for scratching or beat juggling or whatever. So basically, if you get your marker there and then you hit your hot cue, you know every single time that you hit that marker there, that's where your hot cue is going to start, whether it be the start of a beat or your scratch sound or whatever. So now then on to the displays inside these platters. So the default display is you've got 3 waveforms here. The waveform on the outside here is the entire song that you've got loaded. The waveform in the middle is the song playing, as you can see there. And the waveform on the inside is actually the song over on the other channel over here. Now this is really helpful as it's not only a visual aid for like beat matching, if that's the way that you mix, you know, seeing the 2 waveforms next to each other, but it is another thing which a lot of manufacturers are really pushing these days with putting more features on the actual controllers themselves, is taking you away from staring at your laptop and basically making you stare at your hardware instead. So the key info on these In-jog displays, if I just get rid of that arrow there, you'll see you've got what key the track is in. You've got the size of the loop up here, which is the loop or the roll actually. So if I hit an auto loop button up here, it will be 4. So you know what's coming in there. You can obviously change that. And also you've got the BPM. You've got the tempo range over here, what tempo it's at, and then the time remaining of the track playing. But you can actually change this to time elapsed in the utility settings on your laptop, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, an ace feature of this DDJ-REV7 is you can actually change what is in these displays by holding Shift and hitting 33 or 45. So yeah, this is the waveform view here. Then you've got the Serato view here, which basically copies what you see in the Serato software jog wheels. You've got your own logo here, which you can upload, which you do in the utility menu on your laptop. So as you can see here, I've uploaded the DJKit logo. If you haven't uploaded your logo, it actually defaults to the Pioneer DJ logo. And then the final display is actually album artwork, which this tune here doesn't have any, so it defaults to this sort of faded Serato logo. But over here, as you can see, this tune does have album artwork. So it's got the DJ City logo there, which is the artwork which is on that tune in Serato. Now, the cool thing about these displays is that they are independent to each other. So it means that I can have, let's say, the waveforms over on this one, but then I can have my DJKit logo over on this one. Also, a really nice feature about having these displays in here is you can actually get the utility menu in these displays. So if you hold the back button up here, that takes you into the utility menu where you've got loads of different settings to save you. You know, it's basically the quick stuff that you want to get your hands on rather than having to go deeper into the utility settings on your laptop. Now let's take a little look at this area above the platter now. So as you can see, the tempo faders are at the top, like battle mode on a turntable. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that this is the first time I've ever seen this layout on a DJ controller. I know for sure that this is the first time that this layout has been used on a Pioneer DJ controller. Actually, having said that, obviously it's implemented on the DDJ-REV7, which got announced at the same time as this REV7, video coming on that soon. Now, I've seen a lot of debating about the placement of this pitch fader, and let me tell you now, if you think that this is a weird place to have a pitch fader, this DDJ-REV7 isn't a controller for you, mate. Now, it could be argued that there's no real need to have a controller laid out in battle mode, as it doesn't have a tone arm, and that's the whole point of battle mode, is to sort of avoid hitting the tone arm when you're scratching and beat juggling and everything. But again, I have to emphasize the layout of this DDJ-REV7 is all about the muscle memory for those who are used to battle turntable and battle mixer layouts, hence the pitch fader placement and not having the performance pads under the jog wheels, which is what you see on the majority of controllers these days, including this REV7's main competitor, the Rain 1. So up here then you've got your kind of usual suspects. You've got your tempo range, which goes up to 50. You've got your pitch reset, key lock and your sync button. Then you've got your loading knob here, your back, your load buttons here. Double hit that for instant doubles, by the way, which I think is quite an important feature on a controller which is aimed at sort of battle DJs and scratch DJs and stuff. Then underneath here, you've got your key buttons to pitch the key of the track up and down. You've also got key sync and the key reset. Over from here, you've got slip mode and sensor, which basically reverses the tune, but then jumps back. It does it in slip mode, so it jumps back to wherever the tune was anyway. But just want to show you something pretty cool. So when you hit shift and this sensor, it actually puts the tune into real reverse, and you can see that because the platter goes backwards. Pretty cool in my opinion. Then finally up here, you've got your auto loop button and then the two here, which halves the loop or doubles it. Now, I've heard some concern about the placement of these buttons and maybe accidentally hitting them when you're touching on this pitch fader, but it's really not gonna happen. When I'm up here on the pitch fader, my hand goes up and over like this, and it actually feels unnatural to be using the pitch fader with your hand sort of anywhere near these buttons. I mean, the only thing is maybe that part of your hand there, but I mean, I've been using this for a week now, and not once has that become a problem for me. Now then, let's move down to these buttons here, which are the instant scratch buttons. Now, these buttons can actually be used as performance pads, hot cue, scratch bank, and then the secondary options are saved loop and the sampler. When you're using them as these modes, the good thing is they are independent to the actual pad modes here. So it means that you can have, like, you know, hot cue on these pads here and then the sampler triggering up here. But what these buttons are also for are the instant scratch mode. So what the instant scratch feature actually does here is when you press this button, it takes you away from using Serato. So your Serato goes into through mode. It's 4 different banks of scratch samples, a couple of beats in there to use completely standalone of software. So you've got these scratch sounds and beats which just loop over and over and over again. And I've actually got really mixed opinions when it comes to this instant scratch feature. You can't upload your own samples in there, at least you can't at the time that I've shot this video. You can't add any hot cues to the samples. The pitch mode at the top here is locked to +8, like you can't change the tempo range of that. And for me to completely contradict what I said about the placement of these sort of buttons up here when using the pitch, I think that that's in a really dangerous position, considering that when you're playing a tune, if you hit that, it completely stops the tune and puts you into this instant scratch mode. So if you accidentally hit it, boom, dead silence. Also, to be honest, I don't really think that it's very necessary when you've got the scratch bank up here, because the scratch bank feature in Serato, you've actually got 8 different sections where you can drag in whatever you want, whether it be tunes or scratch samples or beats or whatever. So that's a way that you can actually use your own samples up here. And, you know, it sounds a bit funny, but I actually think that it makes it seem a bit gimmicky. Like, you know, we've had, like on the DDJ SB3, that had sort of built-in scratch sounds on the pads and stuff, which is a real entry-level sort of thing to have on a controller. And at the price of this DDJ-REV7, you wouldn't really expect it to be aimed at someone, you know, along that sort of entry-level audience. On the plus side, though, about this instant scratch feature, because it is built into the hardware, it does mean that you don't need a laptop connected, so you don't need Serato connected to use this feature. So, you know, if you wanted to just you know, hop on and have a quick scratch practice, because practice makes perfect when it comes to scratching, you know, you can do that. You don't have to have your laptop connected or whatever. And because it's built in, the hardware effects all work with these built-in instant scratch banks. So let's have a quick look at these performance pads now. So you've got all the usual suspects on here, which are exactly the same pad modes as both on the DJM-S7 and the DJM-S11. You've got hot cue, roll, save, loop, and sampler. And then the secondary options, which are shift, is pitch play, slicer loop, saved flip, and the scratch bank. Worth saying as well, in the utility settings, if you are used to double clicking rather than shift and clicking, you can enable that in the utility settings on the laptop. So instead of shift and hot cue to get to pitch play, you can just double click it. Depending on your workflow, you can change that in the utility settings. Now, something that you can't do on these performance pads is the combi mode, which was a feature that was brought in on the DJM-S11 and the DJM-S7, where you can have 2 pad modes. You can use 2 pad modes at once, spread over here. So you can have like hot cue along the top and then roll along the bottom. But it's not the end of the world. It's kind of saved by the fact that you've got these independent modes up here that I showed you earlier. So, you know, if you did want 2 pad modes going on at the same time, you could have, say, the roll over here and then your hot cues over here. So when it comes to the pad modes, don't forget about the parameter buttons here, which take you to more pages, so you get more options when it does come to these pad modes. And to the left of these parameter buttons here is the silent cue. So I think this is a great thing that they brought this onto this DDJ-REV7, as it is something which is quite sought after for battle DJs, particularly when using a turntable, as what silent cue is it's an immediate start of the tune. So if I just put silent cue on, I can have this tune playing here, nothing's coming out of the master volume until I hit a hot cue, and then you've got an immediate start, which is great because obviously on this REV7, you've only got a start and a stop button here. You don't actually have a cue button. So moving down from the pads here, this is where you've got your headphone section. So you've got your headphone volume, your mix, whether or not you're listening to the cue or the master. And then this is where you decide which channel that you're listening to in your headphones. If it's over here, it's channel 1. If it's over here, it's channel 2. If it's in the middle, of course, it's both. Then moving over here, you've got your sampler volume, which is nice to have because if you are dropping a sample, you don't want that air horn to absolutely blast everybody's ears off. So what I would recommend is starting with the sampler volume probably at about 1/4 Then underneath the sampler volume, you've got the smooth echo. A wicked feature brought in on the DJM-S11, not seen on the S7, which is a shame, but wicked to have it on this DDJ-REV7. What the smooth echo does is basically it adds echo to the channel faders and the crossfader, which you can sort of change your preferences of that. within that utility menu that I showed you before. So you've got the smooth echo options here. You've got what it triggers. So at the moment I've got it on the crossfader, the channel fader, not when I drop a hot cue. I've got it on the silent cue, and when you load a track, you've got how many beats the echo goes on for and the level of the effect in the mix. So while we're down here, let's take a little look at the faders. You've got the Magvel Fader Pro on this Rev7. That's only on the crossfader mind, not on the channel faders, but they do still feel as solid as ever. You can control the curve and the reverse of all three faders on the front of the controller, and you sort of see this on the higher end battle mixers. So, you know, the reverse means when your fader's up here, for example, your tune won't be playing, but when you pull it down, it will be. And then the curve is how sort of harsh you want your cutting to be. You can also get really nitty gritty with that on the utility settings on the laptop. Now, I am a big fan of these faders, but my only gripe here is that the crossfader isn't directly removable. This means that you can't sort of get into it very easily, which is something that a lot of battle DJs like to do, whether it be lubing up the crossfader or, you know, replacing it if it gets a bit battered, or replacing it with a fader that they would prefer. But all in all, 3 thumbs ups from me when it comes to these faders. Right then, let's move up and take a look at the effects. Now, this DDJ-REV7 really excels when it comes to effects. I'm a huge fan of Pioneer's effects anyway, and this DDJ-REV7 has 22 built-in effects, which of course we know as the beat effects on Pioneer DJ equipment. You can also obviously manipulate the Serato effects as well, which there are too many for me to go through. But to be honest, the beat effects on this Rev7 are enough, for me at least, without having to sort of then delve in to the Serato effects as well. But anyway, let's take a look at the effects section. So up here, you've got the 2 paddles. This is how you turn the effect on. So it's up to lock and down for a momentary hit of the effect. To the left this is where the actual effects select are. As you can see, 3 buttons each side, similar to the DJM-S7. The DJM-S11 has actually got 6 each side. So the default effects on these buttons here are echo, spin, flanger, reverb, break, and duck down. Duck down being my favorite of the 3 new beat effects that have been brought in on this Rev7. The other 2 new effects are fill out and helix out. So what duck down is it's a really cool like transition effect. It like ducks the tune down. I don't really know how to explain it, but it is really, really powerful. It's something which I would actually use a lot, not only to transition tunes, but also just as a cool effect. It's almost a bit like a roll effect, but it knocks the tune down in key and stuff as well. Also, I don't know if you clocked it there, but it's nice to see Pioneer have brought in the 1/3 beat for the effect, which you can use for pretty much all the effects, including the echo, which is, you know, a personal favorite as well. So anyway, those are the 6 defaults on the built-in effects, but you can change what effects these are as well by holding down whichever button it is. So if I wanted to change the echo, then I use this browser knob over here, and then you can go through all of the different effects. So actually, let's try helix out, because that is another one of the new effects here. So again, you know, a kind of like pitched out sort of echo out. And actually the other new beat effect that they've brought in on this Rev7 is called the fill out. So let's have a little listen to that. Fill out, here we go. So what the fill out is it's just different patterns of a kind of roll. You've got 7 different patterns there of a different kind of roll-ish effect, which again, you know, cool to use in a mix, but also cool to use as a transition effect. Just a quick one as well, holding shift and pressing these parameter buttons, actually you can control like secondary preferences when it comes to the effect. These differ depending on what the effect is, but for example on the echo here, you can control how much high pass filter you want on the echo there, and you can see it in this little screen in the bottom right hand corner. So as I said, 22 different beat effects built in hardware into this REV7. Built in, of course, means that you can use these effects when you're using this REV7 with external hardware like CDJs or turntables plugged into it or whatever. But as I said, you can, of course, use these paddles and these effects here to manipulate the Serato effects. To get to the Serato effects from the beat effects, you press shift and spin. And now I am in my Serato software effects, which, as you can see, are different from what they are labeled as the beat effects. To get back to the built-in beat effects, which, you know, that's, for me, they're good enough without having to use the Serato effects. You press shift and echo, that takes you back to the built-in effects here. Now, there are so many ways that you can actually customize this effects section within the DDJ-REV7 setting utility menu. So as you can see here, you know, you've got all your drop downs of all the different buttons on here, and then underneath you've got the parameters to really customize them. Also in this settings menu here, you can actually change the color effect. So at the moment I've got it on filter, but you can change it to noise, pitch, dub echo, or wide filter. And then once you've got this how you want it, you just hit save, and you can save it to either bank A or bank B. And then you load your banks, you load your preferred effect settings by pressing shift and bank A or shift and bank B. Then if you want to go back to the default settings, you press shift and echo, which takes you back to beat effects. Also, while we're in this setting utility, this is where you've got your inputs and outputs preferences and stuff. And then also just the general preferences, you've got your crossfader preference here. This is where you also load in your own logo, as I showed you at the start. I've got the DJKit logo in here. I've enabled the double tapping of the pad modes to rather than pressing shift and the pad mode to get the secondary option. And there's some other bits and bobs in there as well, whether or not you want always the same sort of loop activated when you hit the auto loop. And then finally, the about section here is just what firmware version it's on and all of that sort of stuff that you need to know. So above the effects section here, just a real quick one, this is where you've got your EQ, your trim and your filter are over here. I've got to say it is a shame they're not all in line like on the S11, but of course this is the same layout as on the S7 and the S9, so still a very familiar layout. Then you've got your booth level, your master level, of course the little screen up here, and then the switch to go from whether you want USB-A or USB-B. 2 USB inputs on this controller, perfect for back-to-backs of people obviously using 2 different laptops. And then the phono in line, which is when you're using this with external hardware. So speaking of that, let's take a little look at what ins and outs this DDJ-REV7's got. So you've got everything that you would pretty much want to see on a high-end controller like this. You've got an XLR master out, RCA master out, 1/4-inch jack booth out. As I said, 2 USB-B inputs, which is great for a back-to-back for quick switchovers. So one DJ can be on sort of B over here to be mixing on one laptop, and then the other DJ can be on A over here. So great for back-to-backs or just for switching over, you know, to the DJ playing the set next. Also, you've got 2 phono/line inputs because this DDJ-REV7 does act as a standalone mixer. And on top of that, it is DVS enabled with Serato. So if you have got 2 turntables plugged into this with Serato time-coded vinyl, there's no need for an SL box, you know, like you used to have to use back in the day. This is all built in. It's DVS ready. Just as long as you've got the DVS plug-in on your Serato DJ Pro, you can mix your time-coded vinyl just using this REV7. But also it means, of course, that you can use this DDJ-REV7 to play genuine vinyl, you know, on turntables, or or, you know, USB sticks on CDJs if you've got them plugged in. And because of the built-in hardware effects, it means that you can use those beat effects when using this REV7 with actual vinyl or with USBs, or, you know, anything that isn't sort of software based. Also, it's got an RCA aux in, which you control at the front of the unit to flick between offline or portable. Finally, this REV7 has got 2 microphone inputs. One is an XLR and one is a 1/4 inch jack. And then the mic EQ is along the front where you've got low or high. You've got an actual echo for the mics. You've got volume control per mic, and then you've got off, on, or talk over. So finally, along the back of the REV7, this is where you input your power cable. As you can see, unfortunately, this isn't just a standard kind of IEC cable. This REV7 comes with its own power brick. Now, that is a little bit of a shame, as it's not as easy to replace if something happens to it. And, you know, if you turn up with this to a gig, you look in your bag, where's your power cable? You've left it at home. You can't just sort of go and, you know, pull an IEC out of the bar's fridge or whatever to get this controller going. It's going to be really, really hard to find something which will power this REV7 that isn't the power brick that it's provided with. Still, of course, you do see this on a lot of DJ controllers, you know, the DDJ-800, the DDJ-1000, for example, and it does remind you that this DDJ-REV7, even though it looks, feels, and smells like a kind of turntable and battle mixer setup, this is still just a DJ controller. So that's actually quite a nice transition into my conclusion about this Pioneer DJ DDJ-REV7. I think it's absolutely amazing. This is the controller which a lot of battle DJs have been waiting for. I mean, you know, there is the Rain 1 out there already, but it maybe didn't tick the boxes with the people who are used to the workflow of a Pioneer DJ layout. And also the built-in effects on this REV7, the beat effects that you can use with external hardware plugged into it, is a bit of a game changer that the Rain 1 doesn't have. The advantage maybe that the Rain 1 does have over this REV7 is the actual vinyl with the spindle that you can, you know, replace and put your own 45 vinyl on there and stuff. But as I said, this vinyl on the REV7, or like the acrylic vinyl that they've put on here, for me, it's absolutely perfect. It's like, it doesn't matter that it's not a legit bit of vinyl. Also, having the screens built in, you know, uploading your own artwork, being able to put your own artwork into the screen of this is, I mean, you have to think, like, particularly when it comes to like streaming and how popular streaming is and stuff like that, or the audience that this REV7 is aimed at, you know, the battle DJs, the performing DJ, where a lot of the time you're gonna have an overhead camera. Stick your logo in there, mate. Do you know what I mean? Promote yourself. Look how good my skills are. This is my logo. These are my socials, whatever you want to put in there. But also, wicked to have the waveforms, you know, and the opposite waveform as well is a really nice touch. The build quality of this REV7 is top notch. I mean, the mixing section itself, this could be an S7, to be honest. But still at the same time, it's very portable. So if you trust yourself bringing it into a public place where people are drinking or whatever, it is perfect to bring to that bar where you DJ. As a vinyl DJ, you know, maybe you're kind of compensating using their controller or their CDJs there or whatever, but really you want something which emulates a vinyl. Mate, DDJ-REV7 all day long. To be honest as well, if you were looking at maybe getting the Pioneer DJM S7 to use at home with your turntables, I would maybe look at getting this DDJ-REV7 because of the standalone mixing capabilities. You're getting pretty much an S7, but with these extra jog wheels, and then you can plug your turntables in as well. So it's like you're almost getting 2 decks for free. Now, it could be argued that this REV7 is a little bit of a niche product aimed at only the battle DJs or only the sort of vinyl scratch DJs or whatever. I don't think that that's the case. I think that this is a really, really cool controller for people who are maybe used to CDJs, but want to play on vinyl or learn that vinyl feel, maybe learn how to scratch like a battle DJ without having to get the big turntable and battle mixer setup. I am just so annoyed that this isn't out on Rekordbox. So I'm really cross fingers that that will come into play, particularly with Rekordbox DVS as well, so that you can add those two turntables in and use timecode Rekordbox vinyl. Also, and I'm going to put this out there, I know nothing about this, I promise, but something that would be really cool along this kind of range of setup, the way that they've done this Rev7, imagine this exact mixer here, but instead of the two moving platters, the kind of DDJ-1000 jog wheels here, full size sort of CDJ jog wheels, but with the pitch on the sides like you have on, you know, the other Pioneer controllers, but with a battle mixer section there. I really think that that would tick so many boxes for a lot of people who take their battle mixers into clubs and use them with CDJs. Anyway, I have rambled enough. I literally want to get back to mixing on this. It is that good. Guys, let me know what you think of this DDJ-REV7 in the comments of this video. What would you change about it? What do you like? What don't you like? Are you dying to have a go on one? Have you pre-ordered one? Let me know what you're thinking. Also, don't forget to like the video, send it to whoever may be interested in it, and also do not forget to subscribe to the DJKit YouTube channel. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you listening to my annoying voice for this long. All I can say about this DDJ-REV7 is go and have a go on one yourself. You will see how good it is. So until next time, guys, you take care out there. Peace.